The studio was charged, the atmosphere charged with tension as the live transmission of Piers Morgan Uncensored hit a boiling point. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was on the other side of the table, looking serene despite the world around her about to blow its top. Morgan, always the instigator, reclined with his signature smirk. He'd just given a searing critique of Crockett's performance in Congress, hoping she'd squirm. But what followed next would surprise him, and the millions of viewers watching along with him in ways he could never have anticipated. "Congresswoman Crockett," Morgan started, his British accent dripping in disdain, "your recent performances on Congress have been more about creating your own brand than representing the American people." The crowd could have sensed the frustration in the air as Morgan set up to deliver the next hit. But Crockett, unflappable and serene, dipped into her briefcase. What came out of it next left everyone gobsmacked. "As a matter of fact, Piers," she said calmly, "I'm here to serve you with something entirely different." With a sweep of her arm, she dropped a legal document on the table. The camera zoomed in. "You've just been served with a $20 million defamation lawsuit, live on your own show." The deafening silence that followed. Piers Morgan's face creased in confusion, disbelief, and finally, raw panic. His bravado was gone in an instant. Video of his jaws dropping would be watched 1,000,000 times over the next few hours, a tribute to the twist of fortune that had just hit him. For years, Piers Morgan had made a living from being controversial. A former editor of a newspaper and judge on America's Got Talent, he made a career out of testing limits, treading a thin line between regulation and law enforcement. His own TV show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, was notorious for its confrontational approach, regularly targeting American politicians, particularly liberal Democrats. But his fixation on ridiculing Congresswoman Crockett had become personal, and it would prove very expensive. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, representing Texas's 30th District, was no stranger to media attacks. Yet, unlike most, Crockett knew exactly how to fight back. She understood the nuances of defamation law better than most people knew the back of their hand. 3 weeks before, Morgan had broadcast a segment questioning Crockett's law degree, implying that she was the subject of an ethics inquiry and charging her with financial conflicts of interest. All charges were not only untrue, but actionable under the law. And Crockett had the evidence. When Morgan tried yet again to bring her down, Crockett was prepared. She had papers, facts, and an iron will. What ensued would be nothing less than a legal ambush. The interview opened as it typically did. Morgan, anxious to control the narrative, launched his opening attack. "Congresswoman Crockett, your recent congressional performances have been described as theatrical grandstanding." Crockett remained unshaken. "Holding powerful people accountable is exactly what my constituents sent me to Washington to do." Morgan, sensing a chance to escalate, pressed on. "But surely some of your tactics have been questionable. Your confrontation with Justice Allo, for instance?" With the cool confidence of a seasoned attorney, Crockett countered. "The legal experts I've spoken with praised the thoroughness of my preparation." Morgan wasn't finished. His voice laced with annoyance, he pursued, "Discuss your credentials. You've only been in Congress a little over 2 years. Yet you present yourself as an authority figure. Doesn't that come across as presumptuous?" Crockett did not bat an eyelash. "My experience speaks for itself, Piers. I'm an attorney licensed in civil rights law. I received my law degree from the University of Houston and have been practicing for more than 10 years. I'm curious, what are your qualifications in the law?" Morgan's eyes grew narrow, obviously disturbed. "I'm a reporter, Congresswoman. I ask the questions around here." Crockett smiled faintly, calmness now turned into a weapon. "I simply wanted to lay out the credentials of who is questioning my qualifications." The tone became tense. Morgan's producers must have been prodding him to take charge again. He took out a folder and went on the attack, asking about her financial disclosures, her associations with lobbyists, her openness. This was Crockett's chance. Morgan had just entered into false ground. "Impressive, Piers," Crockett retorted, her tone growing sharp. "Could you be a bit more specific? I've been totally open." Morgan leaned in harder, quoting from his papers. "Sources indicate your law degree credentials have been challenged. You're the subject of investigation by ethics panels, and you have confidential financial interests." The studio was quiet. Crockett recognized these allegations were not only inaccurate, they were libelous. "Piers," she replied, her voice now a cross-examination, "I want you to be extremely careful. Are you reporting as fact that my law degree has been challenged? Are you accusing me of being under ethics investigation? Are you claiming I have undisclosed financial interests?" Morgan, perceiving the expanding legal danger, pressed on. "These are concerns raised by credible sources. The American people deserve to know." "What are these credible sources, Piers?" Crockett fired back, her voice like steel. "Because I've got all the documentation to prove these claims are false." At this point, the tables had turned. The tension was thick as Morgan tried to regain control, but it was too late. The truth had been revealed, and Crockett's legal ambush had made history. Before we take a closer look at the story, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the stories the media doesn't want you to hear, because as this bombshell moment reveals, all is not as it seems on TV. Morgan gestured dismissively with his hand, attempting to swat aside the growing pressure. "I'm not going to blow my sources," he said, struggling to take back the reins. But Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, unfazed, had already rehearsed her retort. "Actually, Piers," she replied, "you've just made a few very specific untrue statements about me on live TV. My law degree has never been in question. I am not being investigated. I have no hidden financial interests." She leaned in, supplementing with an icy calm. "More importantly, I think you do know these are lies." The mood in the studio changed in an instant. This was no typical sparring. This was a precision blow. Crockett went on, 3 weeks ago, your production team called my office. My staff supplied documentation showing these claims were unfounded." Morgan's reassuring smile was beginning to waver. Crockett wasn't just charging at him. She was taking apart his story, bit by bit. "I stand by my reporting," Morgan asserted, but it was obvious his confidence was beginning to break. Crockett wasn't finished. "Piers, you've done no reporting. You've parroted rumors without corroboration. You've dismissed evidence, and now you're doubling down on falsehoods." The air in the studio was charged with tension, heavy with expectation as Morgan attempted to redirect the dialogue. "Now hold on just a minute." Crockett didn't budge. "No, Piers, you hold on." Her tone climbed higher, with a righteously indignant anger, her tolerance frayed. "For months you've given untrue statements. You've attacked my qualifications, my integrity, my honesty, with no foundation, in fact. You've established a habit of slanderous posting." Crockett reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder, placing it firmly on the table. "You want to talk about accountability? Let's talk about your accountability for the lies you've been spreading." Morgan, flustered now, tried to downplay the situation. "Congresswoman, you're being overly sensitive. This is legitimate journalism." Crockett's voice boomed, demanding the room. Responsible journalism means fact-checking. It means offering people an opportunity to reply. It means that when you get things wrong, you correct them. She slammed down the folder. "I have transcripts of all of your falsehoods. I have emails from your producers that demonstrate you were presented with evidence refuting these statements. I have proof establishing every accusation you've made tonight as factually incorrect." The studio was charged now, the gravity of her words holding over everyone. Morgan's producers rushed in the control booth, not knowing how to contain the fast-spinning situation. "I also have proof you made these declarations with actual malice," Crockett continued. "You knew or acted in reckless disregard as to their truth." Morgan tried one last time to salvage his position. "Congresswoman, you're upset, but threatening legal action on my show is hardly appropriate." "I'm not threatening legal action, Piers," Crockett replied, her voice calm and firm. "I'm taking it." She reached into her briefcase one final time and pulled out the document that would change everything. The second Jasmine Crockett put that paper on the table, the mood in the room changed. Morgan's smirk disappeared in an instant. He was frozen in shock, unable to speak, as Crockett's voice boomed in the silence. You are hereby served with a complaint filed in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. The camera focused on Morgan's face, his transition from television personality to frantic defendant. His lips moved open and closed, but his words were never forthcoming. The silence dragged on, constricting. This can't be real, Morgan stuttered, his words whispered almost inaudibly. It's absolutely true, Piers, Crockett answered, her voice steady. And the fact that you're being served on live TV is perfectly appropriate, given that's where you perpetrated the defamation. She unfolded the paper, every hair. Word carefully chosen. The complaint states defamation per se, false light, invasion of privacy, and intentional interference with business relations. You've published false statements regarding my professional qualifications, ethical behavior, and fitness for office. Morgan's eyes flew toward the production booth, but his staff was as shocked as he was. The damages claimed at $20 million, Crockett went on, her tone icy but biting. And punitive damages, and injunctive relief ordering you to make public corrections and retractions. $20 million? Morgan's voice broke with incredulity. That's ridiculous. Crockett held firm. In fact, Piers, considering your global readership and the repetitive nature of your defamatory claims, our experts for damages think $20 million is very low. She wasn't finished. You've ruined my reputation before an international public, she continued, producing another document. On October 19th, you said I had falsified my law degree credentials. That's a verifiably false statement, and I have my transcripts from law school and bar admission records to back it up. Morgan attempted to cut in, but Crockett went on, her voice calm, only serving to make what she was saying more heavy. On October 22nd, you asserted I was being investigated by congressional ethics committees. Again, false. I have written assurances from the House Ethics Committee that no such investigation exists. Every untrue assertion she dismantled appeared to deflate Morgan more. On the 4th of November, you asserted that I had financial conflicts of interest. False once again. My financial disclosures are on the public record. But Crockett held back the best punch for last. Here's why this case is so strong, she declared, producing yet another document. These production team emails demonstrate that you were given evidence refuting each of these allegations prior to their being made. She held up the printed emails. On October 12th, your producer Sarah Mitchell emailed my office inquiring about my education. My staff replied with copies of my law degree, my admittance to the bar, and my transcripts. Morgan's face went white. The gravity of his legal situation was sinking in. The studio, once abuzz with stinging barbs and back and forth, was now crackling with the deafening hush of truth revealed. The drama went on, with Morgan literally sweating in an attempt to backpedal. Congresswoman, surely we can talk about this, maybe off camera, he requested, attempting to defuse the situation. But Crockett, serene but firm, leaned forward with a small smile. Oh no, Piers, she said, her voice slicing through the air. You wanted to stage your character assassination on live television. It's only appropriate that you receive the repercussions in the same manner. With a steady hand, she drew out another portion of the lawsuit. The air was charged with suspense as she read, the complaint also outlines the damage you've done to my reputation since your lies started. I've had thousands of threatening emails and phone calls. I've had to institute extra security. My staff has spent hundreds of hours answering media questions. Morgan clutched his chair in amazement. His credibility was disintegrating before his very eyes. This is unprecedented. You can't sue someone for doing their job as a journalist. Crockett fired back with unshakable determination. That's precisely the issue, Piers. You weren't doing your job as a journalist. What you did was create entertainment by promulgating falsehoods about an elected public official. That's not journalism. That's defamation. The legal documents crunched as Crockett set out the next conditions. The complaint also requests injunctive relief. In the event that we are successful, you'll have to make public apologies, prominently featured on your show and social media. You'll also be barred from making any further false claims about me. Morgan, grasping for an opportunity to take back the reins, attempted one final maneuver. This is obviously a publicity stunt. A publicity stunt? Crockett's voice grew higher with real anger. Piers, I am an elected member of Congress. I don't require publicity stunts. What I require is for media figures to cease falsely characterizing me with impunity. She rose to her feet, her stance defiant, staring at Morgan. This suit is not about publicity. It's about responsibility. For too long, individuals such as yourself have used the excuse of journalism to perpetrate lies and ruin reputations. The era of defamation with no consequences is over. With a quick flourish of her finger, she stabbed it right at Morgan. If you want to criticize my policies, that's fair game. But when you lie about my qualifications, integrity, and fitness for office, that's not journalism. That's defamation. And now you're going to pay for it. The studio fell silent, the heaviness of her words lingering in the air. Morgan had frozen, his previous bravado gone entirely. The process server awaits outside your studio, Crockett went on. But because we're on live television, service is complete. You've been served officially, Mr. Morgan. She collected her papers with measured composure, rising to depart. Your attorneys will need to scrutinize the complaint closely. Discovery starts 30 days from today, and I'm eagerly anticipating deposing you under oath regarding your cavalier disrespect for reality. Turning back at the doorway, she added one last searing comment. Oh, and Piers, next time you want to ruin someone's reputation, you better have your facts in order. In America, there are laws against what you've been doing, and now you're going to learn about them the hard way. The camera stayed focused on Morgan's stunned, open-mouthed face as Crockett walked out of the frame, leaving behind one of the most devastating legal ambushes in television history. The silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds before Morgan finally managed to stammer, his voice cracking, "We'll be right back after the break." But by that time, the damage was done. Within minutes, videos of Morgan's response went viral on social media, and the outrage started to build up. Harvard law professor posted, "This is how you deal with media defamation in the digital age, with preparation, precision, and public accountability." British dailies, habitually Morgan-friendly, reported his possible fall from power. The Guardian featured a blistering editorial, and the Times of London said Morgan's strategy was all that was wrong with contemporary media. Legal analysts everywhere were examining Crockett's case as a model for holding media stars liable for libel. Oxford University's Reuters Institute said it was undertaking an in-depth analysis of the financial consequences for both Morgan and Talk TV. The consequences were rapid and painful. The stock of the network fell 14% after hours. Top advertisers started reconsidering their affiliations with Talk TV, and Morgan's personal brand took a huge hit. His social media following fell by 550,000, marking the public's disapproval of his actions. Talk TV, which had gone into crisis mode, started fiery debates on whether they should stand with Morgan. The lawsuit, which had included both Morgan and the network, meant that Talk TV would be liable for the entire $20 million. Other personalities in the media had varying opinions, but many of them privately stood with Crockett in appreciation of her unshaken stance against defamatory acts. For Crockett, the reaction was resoundingly positive. Her office received more than 100,000 supportive messages in the weeks that followed. 3 months later, Morgan's lawyers tried to have the case dismissed on the grounds that his remarks were just opinions, but it was apparent that Crockett's meticulously planned, evidence-supported legal strategy had already established a precedent for accountability in the media. As the case progressed, Crockett's attorneys made a crushing counterargument. They released audio tapes of Morgan's production sessions in which he reportedly confessed that some of his accusations against Crockett were likely untrue, but would make good TV. These stunning confessions made the case one of television's biggest media storms. During the discovery phase, it was also disclosed that the executives at Talk TV had known that most of the accusations were false, but promoted them anyway for a greater ratings boost. This shocker gave rise to more lawsuits and inquiries in the UK, further entangling Morgan's already tenuous position. Public opinion took a dramatic shift. A poll 6 months later indicated that 72% of individuals were in favor of suing media personalities who disseminate false stories. It was evident that this case was initiating a new dawn of responsibility for media personalities and their influence on what people talk about. Morgan's career, once synonymous with controversy and outspoken comment, suffered a huge blow. He lost his program, and his image fell apart under the pressure of his own behavior. Talk TV subsequently settled the case for an undisclosed sum, publishing a public apology and withdrawing the libelous claims that had done so much harm. At the same time, Congresswoman Crockett was a full-fledged political force, her determination in the face of media intimidation demonstrating that strategy, planning, and unshakable integrity could defeat even the most formidable enemies. This case was required reading in journalism law and political science classes around the world, a turning point in learning about the role of the media and the cost of misinformation. It identified how, in our high-speed, globalized world, irresponsible journalism can result in swift and severe repercussions. It also constituted an important shift in the way that public figures, particularly politicians, react to press attacks. What are your thoughts on this? We want to hear them. Let us know what you think in the comments below. If this touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Celebrity Stories. We're exploring the ins and outs they don't want us to talk about, and we're just getting started. God bless you, and God bless America.